Wir kommen nun zum nächsten Tagesordnungspunkt. Das ist die lokale und regionale Demokratie in Ungarn. Our last debate this evening looks closely at local and regional democracy in Hungary. The committee's report, which is contained in document CG 25, will be presented by the co-rapporteurs, Mr. Artur Torres Pereira and Mr. Devrim Torres Pereira from Portugal and Mr. Devrim from Turkey. And also present is the chair of the monitoring committee. Torres Pereira, you have the floor for 6 minutes. 6 minutes, please.
Thank you, President. No, he said Torres Pereira. Sorry.
You want to change?
No,
Mr. Shukor want to speak first, please. It is on your behavior.
Yeah, Mr. President, I will start. At our monitoring report studies, the delegation was composed of Artur Torres Pereira, in his capacity as reporter on local democracy, and myself as reporter on regional democracy. At the preparation process of the report, we received quite a number of comments and a notable contribution from national authorities which have deserved all our attention. My colleague Artur will probably stress it as well, but I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Hungarian delegation in the Congress and more widely the Hungarian authorities which were very actively involved during the consultation process. This part of the monitoring process demonstrates how much the consultation of national authorities on the draft report, be at central, regional or local level, is indeed crucial. That is why we did think that it was necessary to postpone the examination and to submit a draft report on which we worked a lot, taking into account all the comments received. During our visit, we met the Hungarian authorities in Budapest, and we also visited the municipalities of Gödöllő and Szentes, where we had very fruitful exchanges of views with most of our interlocutors. As rapporteur on regional democracy, I would like to mostly stick to regional issues. In respect, I must say that compared to local level, the regional level in Hungary is indeed in a weak position. They are small entities, but they are considered as mainly corresponding to NUTS 2 nomenclature. The Chamber of Regions of the Congress adopted a report in 2002 on the regional issue in Hungary, which requested the Congress to follow closely the regional developments in this country. Since then, I must say that the situation of the Hungarian counties is, in my opinion, weaker even if the government says that the changes planned in the reform are made in order to strengthen the regional level. The overall idea of the reform seems to convert counties into economic development bodies capable of handling the management of European funds in line with NUTS 2 level. This being said, the precise competences to be exercised by the counties in the future are not yet to be specified. Counties have lost their public institutions and a large part of their personal and financial resources. So we can conclude that much has still to be done if we at the Congress want to consider the Hungarian regions in the light of the reference framework for regional democracy and the Charter. As regards transfrontier cooperation, Hungary is very active in the formation of Euro regions and in transfrontier cooperation. Many projects are carried on, notably in the field of culture and tourism. We were informed during our visit by the Ministry for Public Administration and Justice that there is a strong intention to join the third additional protocol to the European Outline Convention on Transfrontier Cooperation. I think it is a positive sign that we should welcome. I will end my presentation on this positive note and leave the floor to the co-rapporteur, Artur.
Mr. Torres Pereira, please, the second rapporteur.
Thank you, Chairman. The latest Congress report about Hungary was adopted in 2002, but it concerned regional issues only. So this is now the first report submitted to your approval covering the two aspects, local and regional. I have to say that I know quite well Hungary for 25 years now. And by the way, that I very much love this country. I can therefore objectively compare situation from now to the existing one of only a few years ago. Also based on facts and witnesses from the various interlocutors we met, I must admit that we are very concerned by the current re-centralization of powers and competences which go against the principles laid down by the Charter. First of all, local self-government is not enshrined neither in the Cardinal Act nor in the Constitution. This is a basic principle that we should have liked to see guaranteed in domestic law, but it is not. Some competences previously allocated to the local authorities are now allotted to the central government, which witnesses of a clear re-centralization. Financial autonomy has been severely reduced, leading to strengthening of the control central government wields over local government finance. The consultation process does not work in practice. We were told that some associations received the financial bill concerning local authorities the eve of its adoption. The pooling of the administrative structures and the officials of municipalities with less than 2,000 inhabitants into administrative structures, now under the control and the supervision of the government offices, will strip elected councils of these municipalities of their political substance and their political means. And last, but certainly not the least, there is no effective judicial protection of local self-government, as the right of local authorities to lodge a complaint to domestic courts in order to secure free exercise of their powers is so limited that it is almost inexistent. I keep saying repeatedly in Congress sessions that the Charter should be applied permanently because of it is crucial that the basic European standards remain a point of anchorage of our values, particularly in these hard times of crisis. We understand very well the political will of governments to reduce the national public debts and the measures undertaken to this end. But the principle of local self-government and fundaments of local and regional democracy, provided and guaranteed by the Charter, must not be undermined by these measures and should not be interpreted differently depending on the economic context. Local democracy has to be strengthened. We tried in our recommendation, dear colleagues, to provide guidelines which aim at correcting this observed re-centralization policy. It is fundamental to revise the Cardinal Act in order to guarantee explicitly the principle of self-government. It is also necessary to review the range of competences allocated to local authorities in order to re-put a certain trust in local level, along with the concomitant finances, of course. The consultation process should be formalised, taking into account the criteria provided by the Charter, namely to consult local authority representatives in proper time and in proper manner and in due time on all matters of interest which concern them. That's what is stated in the Charter, in due time and in proper manner. We will also call national authorities to revise the legislation in order to implement genuine rights of recourse which should be effective in order to ensure that local authorities can make an appeal to a domestic court when its interests are or risk to be undermined. I would not say that we have made neither a tough report nor severe recommendations. I trust that Hungary will have at heart to fulfill its commitments, derived not only from the ratification of the Charter, but particularly from the ratification of its additional protocol 3 years ago, demonstrating then a political will to apply European standards and a kind of credo in the Charter itself. I hope that after this plenary session, we will continue our political dialogue with the Hungarian Ministry through the permanent representation of Hungary to the Council of Europe in the framework of a post-monitoring process towards the implementation and improvement of local and regional democracy in Hungary. In the meantime, my dear colleagues, I invite you to adopt this draft recommendation. Thank you very much.
Ich danke den Berichterstattern. Ich darf die Debatte eröffnen. Ich habe hier 2 Wortmeldungen. Wenn es noch weitere Wortmeldungen gibt, bitte melden Sie sich. Ich kann aufgrund der zur Verfügung stehenden Zeit noch die eine oder andere Wortmeldung zulassen. Es ist ein sehr wichtiger Bericht und Sie haben ihn ja gelesen. Und es ist insgesamt wichtig, dass wir uns hier auch in der Debatte zu Wort melden. Ich erteile das Wort Herrn Geister von der deutschen Delegation. Herr Andreas Geister.
Sehr geehrter Herr Präsident, liebe Kolleginnen und Kollegen! Angesichts der fortgeschrittenen Zeit darf ich mich kurz fassen. Ich glaube, der Berichterstatter PEREIRA hat in wunderbarer Weise das vorgetragen, was auch in die Meinung der deutschen Delegation ist, was wir dem Bericht entnommen haben, und wir können ihn in seiner Auffassung nur unterstützen, dass wir weiter ein sehr offenes Auge auf die Entwicklungen in Ungarn legen, damit sich dort die kommunale Selbstverwaltung wieder etablieren kann, so wie es eigentlich in der Charta des Europarates festgelegt ist. Vielen Dank.
Danke für diese Wortmeldung. Ich erteile das Wort Herrn Illes von Ungarn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me get engaged to speak on behalf of the Hungarian delegation. Mr. Chair, rapporteurs, members of the Secretariat, dear colleagues, dear friends. First of all, I would like to thank to the Congress, the Secretariat, mainly the rapporteurs, Mr. Pereira and Mr. CUKOR, all together with Madam Poirel and Madam Godin to prepare this report on the situation of local and regional democracy in Hungary. They had a hard work, but they made it well. It was not easy because they visited Hungary and prepared the report during the government and administration reform of the country. The new legislation was entering into force in this period. It was not easy because they made a lot of consultation, got a lot of opinion from both governmental and local and regional organizations, and they accurately examined all of the opinions, notices, remarks regarding the drafts of the report before they accepted or rejected. All in all, I think the report has become a well-funded work. Let me have some remarks in connection with the points of the draft recommendation one by one. First of all, it is recommended to put greater emphasis on those points which the monitoring rapporteurs welcomed. The report highlights all the questions in great details that the rapporteurs have concerns about and hardly points out developments in the local self-government system or any best practices they found. Secondly, respecting the opinion described on the draft recommendation, I must say that sometimes the Hungarian delegation considers the situation slightly differently as the draft recommendation. Let me give you some examples. Number one, from our point of view, the autonomy and rights of local governments are protected by the fundamental law and the local government acts. Whenever the autonomy of local governments might be infringed by any other central government agency, it has the right to turn to the court. Local governments may seek legal remedy against the measures applied in the course of legislative supervision. In compliance with the Charter, the exercise of local government's rights is protected by the Court and the Constitutional Court. Second example, the report says about the principle of the financial autonomy of local authorities. We know that the key elements of the financial autonomy are the local taxes. In line with Local Taxation Act, local authorities are entitled to impose property tax, communal tax, and local business tax. In compliance with the Charter, the fundamental law grants a right to the local governments to receive budgetary or other financial support proportionate to the performance of their mandatory tax and competencies. On the other hand, the collecting state revenues, part of vehicle tax and land tax and certain fines, remained as revenues of local governments. Third example, the recommendation says that the principle of local self-government is neither explicitly enshrined in the Act of Local Governments nor in the fundamental law. From our point of view, the Charter is explicitly present and implemented in the system and operation of local governments, regulated in the fundamental law and also in the Local Government Act. Dear colleagues, once more I congratulate the rapporteurs, the Secretariat to prepare this report. Please take into consideration all of the 8 table amendments to the report, and if you think that make better the recommendation, please support all of the 8 table amendments. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Danke. Ich erteile das Wort Emilio Verencia von Italy.
Presidente, grazie. Solamente per complimentarmi con coloro i quali PEREIRA e CUKOR che hanno portato avanti questo rapporto sulla democrazia locale e regionale in Ungheria. Certamente il rapporto è stato diciamo sollecitato anche da una visita che c'è stata del Congresso nel mese di maggio del 2012, sempre facendo riferimento a una ratifica da parte dell'Ungheria nel 2010 del protocollo addizionale sulla Carta europea dell'autonomia locale. Quindi si sono anche prese in considerazione da parte dei rapporteur dei passi in avanti che ha fatto il governo ungherese. Certamente alcune considerazioni che sono state prese in esame devono essere rispettate da questo congresso rispetto al lavoro che è stato fatto. Bisogna rafforzare per rispettare la disposizione della Carta relativa a una consultazione in tempo utile e in maniera opportuna. Infatti da questo rapporto viene evidenziato che gli enti locali non hanno una effettiva tutela giuridica per quanto riguarda il discorso del ricorso giurisdizionale, quindi le riforme che andranno ad assumere in questo Stato va considerato questa precisazione, questa raccomandazione che i rapporteur hanno predisposto per l'esame del Congresso. Viene in particolare evidenziato che il principio dell'autonomia locale, dell'autonomia finanziaria, sono principi, a mio avviso, dei principi importanti, strategici, per far sì che gli enti locali possano dare risposte ai cittadini. E noi poco fa abbiamo celebrato la sottoscrizione della da parte della Repubblica di San Marino dalla Carta, ma dobbiamo essere sempre vigili e dobbiamo essere sempre riguardare con estrema attenzione le riforme che ci sono in atto. Quindi io penso che ecco, il lavoro svolto è un lavoro importante da tenerlo in considerazione e raccomandare al governo ungherese di rispettare quelle che sono state le osservazioni portate avanti da questo rapporto. Grazie.
Gibt es noch eine Wortmeldung? Mir liegt keine vor, außer ich hätte eine übersehen. Mir liegt keine mehr vor. Dann darf ich die Liste der Debattenbeiträge schließen und den Berichterstatter fragen, ob Sie auf die Feststellungen antworten wollen. Und Sie können sich ausmachen, wer zuerst sprechen will. Jetzt kommt Herr Torres Pereira als erster dran.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to thank our colleague, Mr. Galster from Germany, for his intervention and his support, and to our colleague Verenge as well. I would like to tell you, yes, I quite agree with you when you say that financial autonomy is one of the vital principles of the Charter and for the common life of local and regional authorities. And, of course, it is financial autonomy cannot be guaranteed when we see that the 8 paragraphs of Article 9 of the Charter are not respected in this case in consideration. So I quite agree with you. And finally, to my colleague, Dr. Ilyes from Hungary, my dear friend, Dr. Ilyes from Hungary, I would like to thank you for his intervention and for his statement. He said in his statement that he said that sometimes the Hungarian delegation considers the situation slightly different as the draft recommendation. Of course, my dear colleague, we know that in every report on the situation on almost every country, the national delegations used to say that they consider their point of view, in their opinion, the situation is slightly different. I understand that, I respect that, and I quite understand your statement. But unfortunately, our opinion must be based not on our personal opinion, but on the facts that we saw, on the statements that we listened to. And that's based on those facts and those statements that we produced this report and this draft recommendation. Thank you, Chairman.
Vielen herzlichen Dank. Herr CUKOR, bitte.
Similarly, I would like to thank to all supportive words of our colleagues having speeches. I will just add two or 3 points. In terms of good practices, in our report, particularly in the explanatory memorandum part of the report, there are many indications regarding the good practices we faced in Hungary. So we don't tell anything only negative. So there are many things to be underlined, very positive in Hungary. We widely pay attention and also give an importance in the report, particularly in the explanatory memorandum part of the report. And another issue is the consultation process between our team and also the Hungarian authorities. As I mentioned, we postponed even the discussion of the report for several monitoring meetings. So we noticed we taking into consideration all the comments, even the last minute of our discussions. So the last point I would like to mention is our recommendations are quite common in many reports we discussed lately about other countries. So those are quite common recommendations based on the Charter's text and the spirit. So it is not for Hungary in particular, but also for many countries having developing democracies. That's my point.
Vielen Dank den Berichterstatter Torres Pereira und Herrn CUKOR, und ich danke allen Teilnehmern an der Debatte. Die Debatte ist somit geschlossen.